Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the training this week on Thursday. The first week, Todd, we did mindset, secrets to success. The last week we talked about getting active. Let me just do a kind of a quick rehash. The first one, if you haven't seen it, the links are being done. I think Leandra did the link for the one last week today and edited it and got it ready. Be enthusiastic, have a dream. If you're having a tough time being enthusiastic every day, there's steps you can take to start to develop that enthusiasm for life. And it really is something that becomes a choice depending on what activities you engage in. So, be enthusiastic, have a dream, watch what you say. Words are powerful, positive and negative. Speak good words to people about yourself, no negative self-talk. It matters what we expose ourselves to, whether that be the news, social media, people, all the things that we associate with, that we surround ourselves with, has an amazing impact on the type of life. And you see me glancing over, I'm admitting people, on the type of life that we're going to live. So who are you associating with? Do they represent something in your life that you are looking to be? In other words, if you're looking to have a long, peaceful marriage, or, do you have associations with people that have long, peaceful marriages? So focus on the things that we can control. I think it's okay, Todd. Focus on the things that we can control. There's so much going on out there, and there's so many things that can cloud our minds. And I think if we just ask ourselves the question, is what I'm meditating on right now, is what I'm thinking about right now, is it about something that I can control? And then reflecting on last week, we should be asking ourselves the question, does it help me get where I want to go? Understanding, right? You got to have the dream. You got to have the where you're going, your direction, and some form of tact. But you also have to ask yourselves, when you're engaged in activities, does this thought process, what I'm engaged in right now, does it further me? Is it getting me closer to where I want to go? I'm admitting people now, Todd. So reflecting on last week, write down your goals and share them. And I want to take a moment here, and I want you all to know that I am not putting this together because I've got all this down. I am literally going through this with you. And when I say that, I mean, I have listed some goals that I will be sharing with my personal trainer tomorrow. I'll be sharing with Stacy, so that I'm held accountable for those goals. They do have an end date. It's a 30-day work goal, and I have expected return from it. So I am literally going through this with you. I've always had this saying that because I'm a trainer at heart, it's not enough to be like, there's a difference between a travel agent and a tour guide. A travel agent tells you where to go and tells you how to get there and what you might expect. A tour guide it takes you there with them and walks with you through it. And I have always found that it's easier to be sincere when you're actually going through it. So I am functionally working through this. I think I've told on myself that I haven't been engaged in reading for probably a couple of months, which is unusual to some extent. Like I said, reading, it's so good for you, and it always does so much for me that I quit doing it. It's probably just because it's easier not to do it, much like a lot of this stuff. Take action immediately. Do the most important tasks first. You got to identify what's important, and that important litmus test is, does it help me to get where I want to go? If it's a task that helps you get where you want to go, it's already on top of the or near the top of the importance list. Then you want to really focus on what's the hardest, most complicated thing to do. Do that first every day. You'll be amazed at how it changes your outlook on accomplishing other tasks. We talked about time quadrants, right? If you haven't watched that, please do. I'm not going to go through all of them, but quadrant one is important and urgent, and we spend a lot of our time there. Sometimes it's by no fault of ours, nothing we can do about it, but a lot of times it is. We can reduce the time here in important and urgent by spending time in the important not urgent, which is the quadrant 2, and that's where personal health care comes in, both physical, spiritual, mind. That's where planning that's where meditation happens. That's where relationship building happens. That's where the quality of your life is going to be built, in that quadrant 2. And the more you can get over there, the better. Analyze the results of your activities. What results are your activities producing? Is it a positive result? Is it getting you where you want to go? Is it serving the lifestyle that you're trying to attain or achieve, or the lifestyle that you have and maintaining it? Serve others as a habit. What we're going to go through today is people do what people do, which sounds like a cynical title, but you'll find it's exactly the opposite. People are the method. They are the source in the path, or they are along the path of where we want to go. They're going to help us to get there. We can't do anything without people. And when we begin to recognize that, we begin to really develop a deep appreciation for that. And that's what I'm going to go to. So, let's ask ourselves in the last part of review, every day at the end of the day, ask yourself, or maybe near the end of the day, so you still have time in case you have the wrong answer, but ask yourself, what have I done today to move closer to my goals or my dreams? Those things that we've established, right? We got the dream, we got the goals written down, we've shared them. Now it's the discipline to each day make sure we're engaged in activities that and thought processes that engage us and move us closer to where we want to go. You good, Todd? You got something for me?
I can't get the chat to come up.
All right. Well, let's just keep moving. You do what you can. I appreciate you being over there. All right. People do what people do. I'm going to tell a quick, scenario. And people who have been around me enough know and have heard this before. It may not sound, yay, Toddy's got a thumb up, we're good. Picture this, officer pulls me over. I have really two reactions to consider. The first is I roll my window down, poke my head out of the side and say, what the hell's going on? Don't you know I pay your salary? Don't you know who I am? That kind of mentality. Or the other response is, you roll all your windows down, you take your keys out of your car, put it on the dashboard, and put your hands open at 10 and 2. It's a loaded question, right? What response do you think is gonna create a better response for the police officer to me? On the first one, you've already antagonized him. You're already playing into the wrong side of human behavior. On the second, he might actually think that you are an officer or a relative of a police officer. It's going to change his tone. It's going to change that relationship, albeit short. It's still a relationship, right? And we have to know that the first response, we're probably going to get a ticket. We must know that the second response, although it may not be for the effort of getting out of a ticket, because then it's not sincere. If it's just an effort to be kind and to be nice and to get through it, then you're putting yourself on the right side of human behavior. And you know what, Todd? When I came up, I've used this all my life, right? This analogy, but now it might be polarizing. I don't mean it to be. Like that's not where I was going. I've said this for years. Dealing with people. And I'm going to keep going back to this. If the premise that we have to accept, the foundation of this argument is that we believe that there's nothing we can achieve in life, including reaching goals and dreams and destinies, without people. There's nothing in your life that we can do without people. And once we begin to sincerely appreciate people, it's going to cause us to engage in a response to people that's going to put ourselves on the right side of human behavior, on the right side of the human condition, because there's certain, very predictable traits that we have as human beings. And there's exceptions to every rule. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a collectivist. I'm an individualist. But having said that, based on just Western culture, based on human behavior, there are certain trends that are what they are. The data is the data. And once we understand what those are, and most of the things that I go through today, it's not going to be like, oh, revelation, like I never heard that, or I don't believe that. Everything I'm going to go over today is fairly intuitive as a human being. Like if I say it, you go, yeah, that makes sense. If it doesn't, that's where hopefully the chat comes in. If you've got a further question or something deeper, please, that's why Todd's here in the room with me. And that's the, maybe fictitious person I'm talking to right now. All right. They say that 15% of our financial success is based on technical knowledge, and 85% is based on our ability and our skill to deal with people. I believe that wholeheartedly. You can believe it or not believe it, but I believe it. Having said that, it reminds me, Todd, of an analogy of when you go to the golf range. For you golfers out there, male and female, when you go to a golf range, you recognize that the putting green is typically not nearly as busy as where the irons and the drivers are being hit in the woods. The reality is that putting will comprise, if you're a good putter, half of your strokes at least, right? Or huge line share just with the putter. You may only use a driver 12 times in a round, but you're going to use a putter 35 plus, almost guaranteed, well, unless you're a really good putter. If you're in the low 20s, that would be good too. But either way, the point is that I think people focus a lot on their technical knowledge, which is good. I'm not saying it's bad, but the proportion with which they focus on technical knowledge as opposed to focus on personal development to deal better with people, to be a communicator with people and a relationship builder, because those people have a much faster and more predictable means to success. It just is what it is. So to be able to deal with people, like I said, we have to realize that they are part of what we grasp onto, and they give us and help us and introduce us to people that help us to get towards our goals and dreams. Again, I don't believe anything can happen by yourself. So when dealing with people, let's remember, we're not dealing with creatures of logic. When we're dealing with one another, we're dealing with creatures of emotion. And to be honest with you, we respond with prejudices, with pride, and with vanity. Some more than others, but all of those are human characteristic traits that I think that, like we all go, yeah, that actually makes sense. But how often do we really think about that and employ that in the way that we respond, in the way that we deal with people? I mean, honestly, any fool can criticize and condemn and complain, and most fools do. But it really takes character. It takes a self-control to be understanding and forgiving of people. You know, I mentioned that I'm going through this with you. One of the book that I'm reading right now is called Love Like You've Never Been Hurt. And, you know, I want to be a forgiving person. And there's a few things that happened early on in my life that I'm just hanging on to. I'm not bitter about it or anything, but it's there. And it feels like it needs attention, right? So I want to, you know, I'll talk a lot today about joy and some things that I really pursue in my life. And I hope you do too. But know this, I really believe that the deepest human urge is to be important, to feel important, you know, whether as a father, in any relationships, in a business, and, you know, on a team, it just, there's this sense of wanting to matter, right? And to be important. And excuse me, I know that I mentioned, or may have, that I, you know, grew up in a household where, you know, it was just crummy. It was verbally abusive in a very negative, kind of an alcoholic environment. And it really caused me to speak words of truth in life over my kids when I was tucking them in. Like, you know, you're a world changer. You're a difference maker. You're loved. You matter. You have purpose in this life. You can do what you want to do. And I believe all that, right? I believe all that because I believe, again, that probably is one of the deepest urges that we have, is just to matter and to be important. This is a quote from Charles Schwab in doing my study that I thought was pretty, oh, and by the way, a lot of this stuff is coming out of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Amazing book. If you haven't read that, put that on the list along with the others that I've recommended, and any others that you might find valuable in your quest to get where you're looking to go. This is the quote, I consider my ability to arouse enthusiasm among the men the greatest asset I possess. And the way to develop the best that is in a man is by appreciation and encouragement. There's nothing else that so kills the ambitions of a man as criticisms from his superiors. I never criticize anyone. I believe in giving a man an incentive to work. I love that quote, and it would be my prayer to live like that every day, to be honest with you. But let's cover a couple things that we know about people, right? These were off the top of my head, just kind of bam, 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 bam. I'm sure you'll think of others. These aren't the only things, but they're just things that I kind of, in my mind, the reason they were so easy to spit off is because I kind of rattle around them and I meditate on them, and I hope I think about them. I've said this 100 times. The sound of a person's name is the sweetest sound to a person's ear. Use people's names, and I'll get into that a little bit later. How do we know someone needs encouragement? How do we know somebody needs encouragement, Crawford? They're breathing. Everyone needs encouragement. Everybody needs encouragement. You know, for those of you who are of my faith, you know, we're made in God's image. God likes to be praised. Well, we're made in his image. We enjoy being praised. I saw Brother T.D. Jakes do a thing one time, and he's talking about how sometimes wives complain about their husband, but it's about how they're always critical of them. And he said, turn it around. Next time he brings a bag of groceries in, go, oh man, look how strong he is bringing that bag of groceries in. He said, next time he comes in, he'll be carrying 2 bags of groceries, right? I can really relate to this because that's my love language. That's a great book too, The 5 Love Languages by Chapman, I think is the guy's name. Mine is, one of mine is words of encouragement. The other one is physical touch. So my wife's got it made, right? All she has to do is slap me on the butt and tell me I'm the man and I'm good to go. People get defensive when they're criticized. It hurts their sense of importance, and it arouses resentment. So if we're looking, this is mindset training, but really it's about influencing people. So it really is sales training too. So people do business with people that they like, right? People associate and bring into their house, so to speak, or into their lives, people that they like. So being critical of a person automatically throws up, and when we're looking to remove barriers between us and people and build meaningful relationships, and to be critical of someone simply puts a barrier up. And I'm not saying it can't be overcome. Excuse me, pardon me. I'm not saying it can't be overcome, but it's not a relationship building activity to be critical of others. And I know it's easy, you guys. I'm not perfect at it, trust me. But the more we think about it, I mean, we expect what we inspect. So the more we inspect that how people react to things, I think the better we are in engaging them for the purpose of not only helping them get where they want to go, but so they can be a part of us achieving our destiny. I mean, you have to, that's the thing is you can't remove people from where you want to go. They need you as much as you need them. Like I said, people do business with people they like. People like to buy, they don't like to be sold. I'll get into that a little bit. And we live in one of the things I tell people all the time is, when they come to me, if they're asking me about, give them advice and say that, and they tell me all these, I'm trying to admit somebody, bear with me while I'm doing this. And if they tell me their life just isn't going well and this and that, the first thing I ask is, what are you sowing? I mean, everything's so negative. Everybody's so negative. It's like, well, what are you sowing? Are you participating in that negativity? And I don't mean that critically, because that would be the easiest, most human, most intuitive thing to do. I have an old saying that wisdom is counterintuitive. And sometimes when we don't govern our human emotions and our human, what I call knee-jerk reactions, it almost invariably, at least in my life, takes me the wrong way, or not the way that I need to go to get where I want to go. So, what are we sowing? Are we sowing kindness and happiness? Are we sowing joy? Are we sowing compassion for fellow people? Because I believe and I know that we attract what we are. So if you're that person, it's just going to come back to you. So there's a lot of what I think that a lot of people feel victim, and I get it, right? I've definitely been there, and they feel like, oh, this is a lot in life I got. Oh, these are the hands, these are the cards that I got. And my prayer is that you'll see that we actually have a lot more to do with it than we think if we inspect it. The only way to get what we want, like I said, and I'll say it and continue to say it, is we have to help other people find what they want and achieve what they want, right? And if we're microing it down, of course, this is about anything in your life. These are success principles that span way beyond CBD and selling online or in person or whatever. But, if you're thinking about just microing down to CBD, it's like, well, what challenges do you have? Well, I've been in pain. Would you like to be out of pain? Is that kind of what you're looking for? Of course. Why do you think I'm talking to you? Well, you know what? I have something for you. And as a tour guide, you should be able to say, I have taken this, or I currently take this, or I've tried this, or my wife uses this, or my sister uses this, or hey, I've got some testimonies of people here that use that very product. I've never used that particular product, but you walk them through because you're trying to show them. First, you got to get them to articulate what they want, and then you're as a tour guide, you're walking them through the process and talking about what they want. So as you're walking them through, you're talking about, man, what would it like to be pain-free? These are questions I would ask. Somebody says, man, I'm just in pain. Well, I think I can help you with that. I use this and here's what it's done for me. John called. John, what would you do if you didn't have pain? And watch the emotion come over him. See, technically, I have something that helps the endocannabinoid system. They have receptors. They bond to these receptors. That system's been starved because of the political environment. And here's what we do in our transparency. But when you really get down to it, this is the only reason that I was good in sales. It's not, in fact, technically, I probably was usually one of the weaker people with the technical knowledge. But I would get John to talk about what vision he has of his life without pain. Man, I mean, I get emotional right now because I've asked the question. When we started, that's what I asked. And you start talking to, here about, I just want to go to my grandson's baseball game. I just want to sleep through the night for the first time in 13 years. I mean, and then what would you do? It's like, get them to picture it, care about the person, not the sale. And that goes for anything. It does. I mean, I microed it down for that one example because it's relevant to us but it works on everything. Care enough to ask, care enough to take people and show them what they want looks like. Ask them to tell you what they want looks like. Well, I want money. I've told you guys forever. If you base things on money, it's shallow. It's not, the roots don't go down deep enough to hold you together when the wind blows really hard, when circumstances are really crushing you. You've got to have a deeper why on what you do than money. So if somebody says, well, I want to make money, for what? What will that provide for you in your life? Well, to be honest with you, we're paycheck to paycheck. I don't have a savings account. I have this. So what would it look like if you didn't have credit card debt? What would you then do? Well, to be honest with you, I'd like to buy more for my daughter. I mean, you get them to start walking down the path. That only happens if you understand people. Here's what almost every normal adult wants. And it's so not in this order. In fact, as I looked at it, you can almost flip it. So it's not in any particular order. Health and the preservation of life, food, sleep, money, and the things that it will buy, right? Life in the hereafter, sexual gratification, the well-being of our children, and like I said, a feeling of importance. And I think you can flip that and maybe put well-being of children, importance, and then it jumbles based on the individual. But collectively, most normal adults, that's what they're looking for. So in any walk of your life, if you were to just comprise it to that, what are they looking for here? With money, it goes deeper. Money and the things that it will buy. That's where the magic is, right? If they're looking for money, well, what would that buy for you? What does your life look like then? Are you in a different house? Well, no, honestly, I want to make another $500 a month so my daughter can go to a private, elementary school, whatever that looks like. Okay. Anything, Todd? We good? Errors, omissions, cares, concerns? All right. Again, the way to influence someone is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. The secret is really to care about their desires. And it's like, I mean, that's where it all has to start. I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but it has to start with a real legitimate curiosity about a person. If you have a true care, and I know people in my life that are not as much like that. There's times in my life, to be honest with you guys, where I don't think I cared about anybody but me. And it produced a result that was not pleasant. So, and the unpleasant result is what caused me to make a turn, right? And to start focusing on living my life differently because I didn't like the results that were being produced by the activities I was engaged in. And as I look back, it really was based on that pride, vanity, and that selfishness that I think we're all somewhat inbred in. At least that's true for me. But it's like a baseball swing. And I told you guys this. If your hands go out, you're done. If your hands go down this way, you're done. They have to go this way to perform a proper baseball swing. And the cool thing is, if you do this right, you don't have to worry about where the bat's going to end up. It will end up in the bat path, and it will stay in the bat path the longest, right? It doesn't skip out of it, and it doesn't cross through it. It stays here the longest, giving you the best opportunity to find success. I've mentioned it. Remember that people are not logical creatures. They're emotional creatures. There's a book called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. I know it's a weird long name, but It's about a guy, Frank Betcher's his name, and he was an insurance agent in the 20s during the Depression, and how he became successful in selling. He was selling insurance, so radically different than what we're doing, but the principles, that's where I learned how to get people off of logic and onto emotion. But people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. So you really have to start, and I'm an A-type. My personality is I want to jump in, I want to throw up all over them, tell them the features and benefits, and give them a pen and tell them to sign, press hard. There's 5 copies on a contract. But I realized when I found failure in my early days of selling, it wasn't until I read that book and really associated with a business group that was more focused on where the hands were than they were the point of contact. And that's what kind of caused me to change my paradigm. So you really have to appreciate people. And you might say, well, what's the difference between appreciation and flattery? Like it's easy enough to look at somebody and you like their shoes and go, hey man, nice shoes. But that's flattery, and that's typically insincere. I'm not, there's exceptions to every rule, don't get me wrong, but appreciation for a person is sincere. And I think if you're a person that has a hard time with that, and we can, right? I mean, I talked to a guy who up in New Jersey, a good friend of mine actually, who is a cop for now 25 years. And I asked him, I said, does it wear on you? Because I know you see the bad side of human condition most of the time, and cops do, right? And he said, yeah. He said that it does. It absolutely affects him, and he has to get out, and that's where his faith comes in, to where he can reinvigorate himself and re-encourage himself and believe again in the human condition. And so if you're there, if you're one of those people where, man, it's hard right now, know that you need them. You need them. And cool thing is, they need you. They absolutely need you. If you're a person who's not out there investing in other people and building relationships and edifying and uplifting and trying to help people, then that means you're not there to help them. That means you're a player that's withdrawn from their scope of influence that could help them get where they want to go. So it really is it's totally a holistic thing. It's rare when a person unselfishly serves others. That's a rarity. It just is, right? I mean, think about it. Because it's rare, the person who unselfishly serves others has a huge advantage. We have an edge. That's why I said in the first one, how big's your servant's towel? Make serving people a habit. When you do, you literally give yourself an advantage over most people who don't actively serve, who are actually selfishly, and I'm not saying they're bad people, don't get me wrong. I have my own value system, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I know people out there that make a ton of money serving a very selfish need and not really caring what they do or what happens to the people who are either in front of them or in their wake, right? I mean, I know a guy who's a parent who tells you that. He said, man, personal is personal, business is business. And he tells you better keep your eye on everything, because if I can get it, I will. And he told me that once I understand your business concept, I'm probably going to steal it. So obviously I didn't work with the guy. It was rare that someone was that honest, but that's how he makes his living. You want to elevate your life, learn how to earnestly appreciate people. Where are we? 2:30. Okay. Why do people, and again, you probably think it's a trick question. It's not. Why do people love dogs so much? Todd, why do you think people love dogs so much?
Because they love you.
That's right, because they love you. It's unconditional love. Now, listen, I'm not saying that that's possible. I mean, I think that unconditional love is possible, but for my kids, right? I actually conditionally pretty much love everybody else. Like, there's certain things you could do. I may still love you, but I wouldn't like you enough to be around you. But that's the thing. And what I think people need to understand is, generally, a dog makes you feel important, doesn't he, Todd? Like that's the coolest thing about Max. I mean, when you come home, he runs and he's excited to see me and he jumps on you. Catherine loves it. She loves coming in the morning, and if James or Max is actually out walking with Stacy, she gets disappointed because she wants that. Why? Because it makes us feel important. It makes us feel loved. And I think when we begin to understand people, it's easier to give that to the right people in our lives. I read this and I agree with it. These aren't my words, but people are not interested in you. They're not interested in me. They're interested in themselves. Now, the author left it there, but this is what I added. It seems cynical, right? What are you saying, Matthew? Nobody cares about you? No, 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 no. I'm saying that by and large, people are not really interested in you. They're interested in themselves first. And you might think that that's cynical, but it's really not. Because if you think about it, the first thing that we did in this training, in this success principle exercise, the very first training was to be enthusiastic and to have a dream, right? And have goals. So if my goal is to influence more people, my goal is to get down the path to my dream, and I know people are a part of it, then I know that getting them what they want is going to help me get what I want. Like, it's not a negative. It just means that the person is focused. That's why when you're talking to somebody, you have to be a good listener, which I'll get into, but you have to identify where they want to go and how you can help them. That's why in our faith, prayer is so powerful, because the people who use it and know it works, it's like that's something you can do to help somebody get where they want to go. That's something you can do. And I know that's just one example, but if we understand that people either are selfishly trying to get what they want and that's it, or even if they're selflessly trying to achieve a dream, they know that people are a part of that and they want to interact in that in the right manner, then it is generated by a source of self-interest, if that makes sense. So I thought it stood out to me. I was like, I don't know about that, but once I dove into it, that's kind of how I interpreted it. The difference is that we know that people are how we get where we're going, and we remember that they are our most valuable resource. And I talk about it all the time, man. In our business, our staff and our sales rep are by far our most valuable asset. I mean, do we have a big, Billy Bad website and cool technology and studio, and we've got some really neat stuff going on, but nothing compares to the people, because without that, we can't get where we want to go. Okay. The one who is, so I got I think it was 6 that I came up with, 6 kind of bullet points that I think for those note takers out there, I am going to get to a point where when the training gets to where I can toggle back and forth to my, my desktop and, maybe throw some information out there, but we're not there yet. Todd, do you have something?
Joe Petroselli asked the question, can you tell us the difference between a customer and a client?
Joe Petroselli asked the difference between what is a customer and what is a client. I don't know, Joe. Why don't you put it up there? I have several answers. I'm not sure where you're really going with it, but please put it up there and I'll share it. But Joe's a guy who shares in my love for success principles, and I think he has read a lot of the same books that I have. Here's the thing. There were probably half my life I didn't even really know that these principles existed. So when I tell you that, we can develop, like, most of success and failure is a choice, right? So, all right, so we got 6 things. Joe, interact with me. I want to hear what you have to say about that. I'm interested. Number 1, become a person, and I've kind of gone over these, but this is like note-taking stuff, right? And I'll expound on a little bit. Number 1, we just went over, become a person who is genuinely interested in other people. Become a person who is genuinely interested in other people. Number 2 is smile a lot. Smile. People gravitate to happiness. In my life, see, I think smiling and being happy and exuding a sense of joy, it's a pulling effect. It's like a gravitational pull, but it's almost like the other side of a magnet too, in that it repels. And what I mean by that is, if you exude an attitude of joy, if you exude and you're smiling a lot, and the smile can't be fake. If you're walking around like the Joker, it's not going to work. The smile has to become, you're enthusiastic, right? You're engaged in life and you see life in a way, because wrong people don't like to be around it. I mean, have a childish optimism about things. I'm not saying don't be analytical, pragmatic, but have a base childish optimism. I've told you that there's some areas of these principles where, you know, I still struggle and I still have to really work hard to be mediocre at. There's some that come very easy to me. One of the things, and I've always said that a lot of our greatest strengths are also our greatest flaws if they're not used properly. One of the things that I have is a childish optimism. I really do. I kind of stay in the moment. I do that really well too, intuitively, but almost too much to where, you know, I have to make sure that I'm planning properly and spending that time in quadrant 2 to plan, because I really like being in the moment. And the better I plan and the more time I spend in quadrant 2, the more I'm allowed to do that. Because as we'll discuss here in just a minute, it's very, very, very good, solid trait to be able just to be in the moment, to what I call be where you're at. So remember, I'm going through my notes here. Remember, the first rule is to be enthusiastic, have a childish optimism. I would get away from people who don't have that. Again, association is so powerful. If you don't want to be negative, don't hang around negative people. If you don't want to be negative, don't speak negative. Edify others, get around others that make you feel awesome about who you are and recognize your positive traits and that are not critical and not complaining all the time. I'm telling you, the minute you get away from that, you feel like a weight is lifted off of you. Joy is a decision. And I think people get that wrong. You know, I can argue both sides. Happiness and joy are two different things, right? Happiness is more of a right now moment emotion, where joy is more a way of life. Joy is a choice. When you have a joy in your life, it's not susceptible to circumstance. Now you might say, well, yeah, it is. No, it's not. If you have proper joy in your life, I'm not saying that you don't have to rely on certain principles when circumstances get tough. And believe me, I've been through some real stuff, and I'm not being insensitive here, but joy is absolutely a decision. And it's not like, oh, I want to be joyful. You have to engage in activities and thought processes and be around people and do the things that we're talking about to start experiencing that inner joy it can't be taken away. We can give it away. I'm not saying that, like, circumstances could cause us to give it away, but we're not in a state of victimhood when it comes to our joy. All right, that is an inner thing. Abe Lincoln once remarked, most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And I completely believe that. And here you're like, well, how do you do that? Honestly, I would start with having an appreciative spirit. Take time just to be thankful. Be thankful for the small things. And you might go, oh, well, Matthew, you don't know what I'm going through. I don't. But I know that we're healthy enough to be on this call. I know everybody's got technology and power, right? And we're engaged in something where we have the freedom to develop ourselves. Everybody's got light. There's so many little things to be grateful for. And I got to be honest, if there is one other thing that kind of comes easy to me, it's that. I actually told my buddy Tony on the golf course, I was like, man, I always do. I'm like, man, we're just so blessed to be out here. It's amazing. Look at this. And one day he said, man, you're one of the most grateful people I've ever met. And I looked at him and I said, that's about as good a compliment as somebody can give me, man. I appreciate you saying that. I'm grateful for you telling me that. That's what I told him. But I'm really grateful that I'm grateful. I remember I lived on a place called Davis Island in Tampa. And there's this, it's an island. So there's a bridge. It's not big that you have to go over. And on the left side is downtown Tampa, and Tampa General Hospital was a beautiful facility. On the right side's Tampa Bay. And man, I lived there. I used to ride my bike over that bridge twice a day at least to get to school for 3 years. And I left that house and moved into an apartment for about a year. And then I moved back in so I could save money to go to Gainesville to go to school. When I had I remember it like it was yesterday, Todd, the black Mustang hatchback was packed full of my stuff. And I'm going over the bridge and it hit me how beautiful it was. And it almost, even at 18 years old, hurt my feelings that I wonder how many times I'd gone over that bridge and not appreciated the beauty, and just, it was lost on me. And I vowed that day, and thankfully it stuck. It really did. I vowed that day I wasn't going to let things pass me by and not be appreciative of it. So if you want to try to find joy, be appreciative. Find your smile and use it. I mean, one of the things that the book, Love Like You've Never Been Hurt, it talks about, relationships that may not be so broken and disfigured, but relationships that for whatever reason ended on a bad note, man, if you've got those, man, re-engage those. Find reasons to be enthusiastic in your life. Smile a lot. The number 3, so 1 is become a person who's genuinely interested in people. 2, smile a lot, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. 3, remember names. I put this down because I think it's one of the easiest things we can do that has the most impact in how we react with people. Remember names. And if you're one of those people, and I used to be, trust me, where you say, I can't remember names. Let me tell you what I told me, that's a lie. That it just means that up until that point, I didn't care enough to do it. Because once I really cared, and I'm still not great. I don't have a photographic memory or anything. I don't have some advantage that another person doesn't have. I just engage in activities to help me remember names. Why? Because I know when I call people by their name, I like the result I get, right? I like the reaction that I get. I like engaging in activities where it produces a result that I enjoy. So I always repeat it. When I meet somebody and say, hey, my name's Mark. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? It's nice to meet you. Mark, are you married? You know what I mean? And just if you say it, if I say it a few times, it works. If it matters enough to you, and I'm telling you, it's one of the most important things you can do to find some real production with a really small effort. Some of the stuff that I'm talking about is hard. It takes time and it takes discipline, and you have to do it. And by the way, my definition of discipline is engaging in the activity that we decided to engage in long after the emotion under which we decided disappears. Because we know that when we make a big decision, there's always a lot of really cool emotion that we feel. But that, as we all know, wears out, right? It's like we have to find other ways to be excited and find that enthusiasm, because the newness and the novelty, that reason for excitement, is going to dissipate. When that excitement dissipates, like, oh, I'm so excited to start this new workout, about week 1.5, when you're not really seeing results, it's really hard. You're not, you kind of want to go to the movies like you used to, and you're kind of wondering why you made the decision to. All that discipline is when you continue that activity after the emotion under which you did dissipate. So a lot of this stuff requires that discipline. Remembering names does not. I mean, it's that easy. Also, when you're in a checkout line, listen, I think the end game for this is I want to be a better influencer. We're influencing people to make decisions like make a sale. But we influence people in every step of our lives. That's why I think smiling is so important. Just smile at a stranger. You don't understand the power that might have to someone who doesn't have much to smile about, or who isn't around, or is, cooped up in their home during this lockdown with somebody who doesn't give them any reason to smile. I mean, you have no idea what kind of impact that can have on someone else when you just smile at them. And when you're in the grocery store, look for a name tag. Thank them by name instead of just thank you, Rose, really appreciate you. You'll see that if you don't already do it, you'll see the reaction to you is different. You can actually have an influence in that person's life in that moment. So it's got to start outward. It can't start from within, other than the dream. And it's like, all that's individualism. But then it's got to be like, now how can I go out and how can I influence other people positively? And so in my life, the things that I want to come back to me, right? I want kindness. I want joy. I want love. I want people I can count on. I want integrity to matter, right? And so when we sow those things, we reap them. All right, number 4, be a great listener. Wow, this should be number 1. Listening is one of the greatest compliments you can give anybody. And I tell you, I've told you a few opportunities where I shine. This is not one of them. I have to work on just being mediocre at listening. I'll tell you who's an amazing listener is my wife, Stacy. My daughter, Catherine, too. Unfortunately, James kind of is the nut that didn't fall far from the tree, because he's not a man. He's 13, so he has an excuse. I don't. Anyway, excuse me. Many people, listen, I was on with a rep today, and I mean, everything I said, he said people were talking about the prices were too high. And I was like, well, we have a lot of ways to save. Also, you can buy whole thing, just giving him suggestions. And everything he came back was, nope, this, nope, that, nope, this, nope, that. And it's like, I wondered to myself, is he a good listener? Is he? And I don't know. I'm not criticizing the guy. I legitimately don't know, but it was an honest question because I'm gotten to the point. It's like, wait a minute, that's way too consistent. And our business model, I mean, it's successful, right? That's way too consistent. If you're doing it, so to me, it's like I'm talking about the activity, but I didn't talk to him about this. And the reason is it's like it would have to be in a session like this where I could really investigate what this guy's doing. But unfortunately, we have thousands of reps, so I can't do that all day. So that's why I do this. So I hope he's on. I haven't looked. And if he is, he may not even know I'm talking about him. I hope that's the case too. Many people fail to make a favorable impression because they don't listen. All is lost. It doesn't matter the technical knowledge. That's why the 85%, the 85-15 rule is so real, is because it doesn't matter your technical knowledge. If you're not listening to me, I'm telling you, I don't want to talk to you anymore because to me, I don't need to hear myself talk. So it's like, hey, well, what kind of car are you looking for? I'm looking for a truck. Well, we've got this beautiful sedan over here. And it's like, dude, no, I'm looking for a truck, right? So that can sever everything right there with somebody. Again, not forever, but it creates a barrier, right? Like when you criticize somebody, they're going to put a wall up that you're going to have to now overcome. And it typically takes time and it takes real honest care, not just to get over the walls with a Trojan horse, right? To get through the wall so you can actually impact, because we do make mistakes. I mean, you can know what to do and make mistakes all the time. That would be one of them, not listening. And I'll tell you that a lot of times people are more concerned about what they're going to say next than they are about what the person's saying. I have that saying, wherever you are, be there. Not only physically, like if I'm talking with somebody and Todd and I are having a conversation, I not only want my mind here, meaning I've got an appointment in 10 minutes that I'm going to be late to, and I start thinking about being late to that appointment while I'm interacting with Todd. That's an insult to Todd, and what it's going to do is it's going to keep him from opening up to me in the future, because it's obvious when somebody's not listening to you. I think we all know that. I'm sorry, I've got something in my throat today. Thank you for bearing with me. Let people be on stage. Ask people to talk about themselves, about their families, about their businesses. Man, you want to get somebody to talk. Ask a business owner about his bit. You want to talk? You want me to talk to you? Ask me about my business. I love talking about my business. I mean, I love talking about it. Let people be on stage and let them have their own stories, right? This comes usually from a really good place, this error in communication. And that is, an example would be, yeah, my wife and I, we went to this beach 30 minutes away. We stayed overnight, had an amazing time, and tell you all about it. And you can't wait for me to finish to relate to me. That's where I say I think it comes from a good place, because I think a lot of times we're just trying to relate to people. But then Todd may say, yeah, Iris and I just went to Acapulco for a week. And it's like, it totally stepped on my story, right? And I see that happen with people a lot. And it's because you want to relate. I would say if you do want to relate, make sure your relationship story isn't as glamorous as theirs. Honestly, I always want to know more about the person that I'm talking to. If I'm doing it right, I would want to know more about the person I'm talking to than they know about me. Not because I'm being secretive about me. I mean, if I run into another guy like me, it's going to be one question. It's going to be like a tennis match. I want to know about you. And as soon as he answers thoughtfully, he's going to send it back at me. But what you'll find most often, and this is not a bad thing, it actually plays into our favor, is that most people want it to be about them. Unless you're trained in it, or unless you have a natural proclivity, which I believe there are personality types that do have this, you're going to want to talk about you. That's what I told you. Most people are more interested in themselves, sometimes for a very selfish reason, sometimes for very unselfish reasons, but it still goes through that self-interest. So if that's a way we can actually that plays into what we want to do. That's, you might call it, for me, it would be a negative trait, But when I'm talking to somebody, that's not how I see it. I see it as an open door, just it's like playing cards and they turn around and just show you their hand. That's what we're looking for. But if you're trying to get this information just to get something for you, it's not going to work. You got to try to get the information so that you can help them. And when you do that, you're furthering, I believe this all my heart, that we're furthering ourselves along that path to our dream, destiny, goal, whatever you want to call it. So encourage people to talk about themselves, ask questions about them, be legitimately curious about people and building meaningful relationships for right reasons, to have a meaningful relationship, because that's this. If you start thinking about the sale, you're thinking about your bat being there, and you're going to want to do things that are not right. It is hard discipline to get this. It is really tough. And when you do and you feel it, my son James has been taking swing lessons for 5 years now from a guy who trains professionals here locally. And his addiction is the feel when he does it right. And isn't that all of us? I mean, the feel when you help somebody, the feel when when you put work in and you bear fruit for your labor, that just feels good. That means things are going right. And so you kind of got to flip the script and have an honest appreciation, an honest curiosity for people, and an honest desire to build relationships that are meaningful. So make others feel important. Like I said, and that's number 5, make others feel important. Again, I'll reflect back. I believe, and you can read it. A lot of people do. It's not a conspiracy theory, that feeling important is one of the deepest human urges that we have. And to take that away from someone or to not play into that would be, you're done when you show up, right? You're defeated once you show up. If you make someone feel important, if you criticize them, if you don't listen to them, right? That makes me, and listening is a very physical activity. It's not just, asking great questions based on what you're told, which is a great thing. Well, I went to school up in Maryland. What school did you go to? How many kids you got? Got 3. What are their names? And so if you're a person like, well, I don't remember names real well, you're gonna have trouble with that. You get 3 or 4 kids' names and you got to remember it for later on. All right, and lastly, and I'm just going to spend a few minutes on this, and this is number 6. And I see that the reason I think, and I'm kind of pausing here, is because the times that we're in, things change, right? And things become more and less important based on where we are in our walk. And there's a lot right now, since the introduction of social media, and we know that that's negative, right? We know that negative. In fact, there's a study that if you do a negative subject line in an email, it'll actually increase your open rate. So it says a lot about the world that we live in. And this can be hard. I see so many people, and track with me on this. I see so many people, and I do spend time in Facebook. I don't post much. It's more because I'm lazy and I'm a dude than anything. I don't have anything against it, but I have tailored my Facebook to its families. If somebody gets real political, I either mute them or whatever. I just, you can kind of tailor your thing. Twitter, I think I told everybody I got rid of. It was too negative and I would get sucked in, and I do have an opinion. I don't share it with many people because honestly, I don't think many people really care what my opinion is. I think the people just want to hear what I have to say. And if I don't agree with them, they're going to try to beat the crap out of me. And now it's kind of gotten to be critical of me for those opinions. So I don't share them because it's not important to anybody but me. I see so many people who are identified. I know them by what they don't like. That's all I know. If you're talking about just online presences before, if you look at Twitter, if you look at Facebook, and you're not, filtering it on a constant basis, I know people. And I don't, I maybe went to high school with them. I know who they are, but I don't know their value system at all. At all. Do you understand that? All I know is what they don't like. I start to let's identify ourselves by the things we like. Speak what you like instead of always what we don't like. And I know that's counterintuitive, especially in the environment that we're in, but we're not victims to a critical complaining environment unless we choose to be. It's still a choice. We speak what we want to speak. And I would start posting, I'd start speaking things that you like. Identify yourself by the positive, not the negative. It's okay to have negative opinion. I'm not saying that, but man, if your identity, I mean, honestly, if somebody were to look at, and this is an individual question to everybody, if somebody were to look at your social media profile or see you on the web, what would it look like to them? How would that representative look to you? And hopefully you're saying, man, everything's puppy's breath and, puppies and kids and grandkids. Great. People do business with people they like. People don't like critical people unless you're a critical person. And if that's the case, I don't know that it is going to work for you. People rarely follow people. And you might say, well, what do you mean? What's leadership all about? Track with me on this. Let's look at Martin Luther King. I think it's absolutely fascinating that this man got 250,000 people to the lawn in Washington, D.C. without Facebook, without electric reminders, without text reminders. I mean, how in the world did he get 250,000 people? When you begin to inspect it, you would think, like, what made him different? Well, he wasn't the only African-American orator at the time. He wasn't the only civil rights advocate at the time. He didn't have more money than anyone else. He was a pastor. Like, why did that happen? And if you really get down to it, Martin Luther King didn't really get the 250,000 people there. What he believed is what got 250,000 people there. He spoke what he believed. He didn't speak the technical. His speech was, I have a dream, not a plan. Because he constantly spoke what he believed, he spoke his value system, he spoke it. People didn't show up for Martin Luther King. They showed up for themselves because they believed what he believed, right? So when we begin to look at that example and then now investigate, what are you speaking that you believe? Or is it all, I don't believe that, I don't this, I can't that, I am offended by that? It's like, I get it, there's a place for that. I'm not saying don't do that, but I see more often than not that that's all people are doing. And that is no way to find joy in our lives. There's no path to joy through that. If you have no joy in your life, this may be why. Words are so powerful, to the positive and to the negative. Remember, no negative self-talk. If you can't do something right now, you might know it in your head, but speak, I can do that. I'm doing the things I need to be able to do that. Speak positively about yourself. Speak positively about others. If we speak negative about us, it's going to have an impact on us. If we speak negative about other people, it's going to have an impact on them and us. And again, obviously not to the positive. Yes.
Could you repeat what number 6 was? And
identify yourself by those things that you like. All right, we are at 301. Make sure you keep thinking about the things you can control. I'm trying to give you guys some tips on how to find that joy and to find that enthusiasm and that childlike optimism and have the ability to kind of be where you're at and calm the noise, right? Because if we investigate and we act on these principles, again, it's to get us to where we're going, but think about the influence that we can have on a daily basis on other people, like being specifically positively influential on people, even if it's only through a smile. Thank you all so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate everyone. If you're watching me live, thank you for being here live. If you're watching it later, know that I respect the time that everyone invests to better themselves. It causes me to admire and very much like you. So thank you very much, and we'll end it right there.